All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sweeney's Take, episode 9. It is 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, August 27th. I always try showing you this. Someone before got in my head. They took up real estate in my brain saying, oh, these things are pre-recorded. No, they're not. We're spitting it live. Got a good episode for you guys here today. At the end of it, my episodes usually go just 30 minutes, but at the end of it, I'm going to take your questions and I'm going to try to answer every single one of them. I don't know if I'll be able to, but it depends on how many questions we get. But I'm going to go for about 30 minutes. I'm going to cover some of the recent highlights of this week. Busy week in politics, busy week in feminism, even busier week in socialism, and a slow week for capitalism, okay? But if this is your first time joining Sweeney's Take, thank you for attending. I like to mix in my episodes with good political discussion, very meticulous, analytical thought, precision, clarity, illumination, and I like to just present you with facts as persuasively as I can, but I also like to sprinkle in a little bit of fun, okay? If you come to Sweeney's Take, like I've always said, it's very rare, where you'll agree with everything that I am going to say, but I want you to, at the very least, Nicole Henry, I finally caught alive. At the very least, I want you to leave Sweeney's Take saying, okay, that was fun. That was worthwhile. That was stimulating. That was substantive. You're never going to leave Sweeney's Take and be like, oh my God, that was boring or that was vacant. I give my life to this. I spit into this microphone like the rent is due. And I do it all for the love of the game, okay? I don't do anything I've ever done in my entire life, and I mean that to my core, for some dividend, for some pie in the sky. I'm probably crazy, but that's okay because all the best people have been. And the only person I've ever looked up to in my life is Vincent van Gogh. Why? Because he was also convinced to an ironclad degree that what he was producing was valuable, and he didn't need some public reception for that. He didn't make a dime. He was also a hopeless romantic. His left ear is a testament. But let me get into this episode. We got a lot of topics to cover. But before I do, first and foremost, R.I.P. Dolly Parton. True queen. And in the midst of such a chaotic week for women, which we will get to, Miss Clancy, Miss Emily Gallagher, Miss Michelle Wu in Boston, it's good to have a little bit of a silver lining to remember there are heroines among us. No, it's not the hosts of Call Her Daddy. Okay, it's not Haley Batchelder and Alex Cooper who are running women really into the ground and pushing one of the most hypocritical lines of all time. No, it's Dolly Parton, man, gone too soon. And I saw a tweet from Spencer Pratt, friend of the show, discussing how much philanthropy she engaged in, right? And how much she gave. There was a stat showing she could have been a billionaire, but she gave so much of her wealth away to other folks. That's a patriot right there. That's a patriot. Someone who gives to others with limitations and with common sense and with humanity and empathy and all that good stuff. But here's a little bit of homage, if you will, to Dolly Parton. Sometimes my videos get flagged if they've got copyrights in them, so I couldn't choose a direct Dolly Parton song. Instead, I chose one of the most beautiful covers of a Dolly Parton song by none other than Miley Cyrus. And whenever I share content with you guys, it never goes longer than a minute. So bear with me, let me put you on game. Here's Miley Cyrus covering Jolene by Dolly Parton. And when you listen to it, don't just listen. Like Wesley Snipes told Woody Harrelson in White Men Can't Jump. You can't just listen, you gotta hear Jimmy. Hear Miley and hear Dolly Parton coming to us through the echoes and eternities of heaven. Where's Miley these days, man? What a talent. Thank you, Christina. Big fan of Venezuelan Americans.
Jolene, 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 Jolene. Oh, I'm begging of you, please don't take my man.
No one's singing like this anymore. No one's doing this.
Jolene, 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 Jolene.
Pipes.
Please don't take him even though you can.
No one's doing that.
Your beauty is beyond.
Yeah, I'm not going to let that all the way play through, but if you guys go to YouTube, Miley Cyrus covering Jolene, sometimes I'm just scrolling through YouTube. I'm doom scrolling. I don't know if that's exactly what I'm doing. And I come across these relic videos that are saved somewhere and the annals of value and beauty. And that's one of them, man. Miley Cyrus does Summertime Sadness. YouTube has so much good content out there, just truly beautiful moments in American civilization and American society. But Dolly Parton, gone too soon. Here was the tweet that Spencer Pratt put up. She could have easily been a billionaire. She gave $600 million to charity. $1,000 a month to victims who had lost their homes. You miss seeing that, right? You miss seeing people who sacrifice that much for others and give up so much of their personal wealth to other people. Love it. But a lot of people asked me a few housekeeping matters. A lot of people asked me during my last episode for the name of Patriot Protect. Patriot Protect is a company, by the way, that strips all of your information on the internet. There's thousands of third-party data brokers out there. So if you've gone on different websites and left your address or your phone number, or your maiden name, or your social security, God forbid, Patriot Protect, and we'll put a link in this live's description for you guys to go to their website. I used it myself. If you are conscious that your privacy might be out there, use Patriot Protect. It'll generate a report for you to show where your information might be out there. And a lot of my friends who've already done this, because it's a friend's company, were surprised at how much of their information is out there. There's like a promo code we'll share that'll get you guys a discount. Highly recommend it, especially in this day and age with how dangerous politics gets. But moving forward, okay, highlight of the week is the absolute psychopath that is this woman, Lindsay Clancy. It's all anyone can seem to talk about, and there's a million things I could say about this woman. Here's the first and foremost. I hope that she gets strapped to an electric chair, then lethally injected twice. And I want to discuss this like adults, okay? Here's the number one sort of prevailing sentiment that you need to remember. No one in their right mind, no one who has a heart, no one who understands just an iota of how difficult it is to be a woman. It is difficult to be a woman, unbelievably difficult to be a woman, especially the physical challenges that women have, especially after pregnancy. No one is denying that is not talked about enough, that is not treated enough. No one's denying it was misdiagnosed here. No one is denying that her psychiatrists in the medical industry were honestly reprehensible or just negligent. Derelict isn't even the right word. Or that her husband could have done any of a million things better. No one is denying that. Not one person is denying all of those things. And when you hear people bringing attention to those, well, postpartum's not talked about enough, are the people suggesting that it's not in the room with us right now? When we say we want this woman to fry, it's because here is the reality. If a man did exactly what Lindsay Clancy did, no difference. You just substitute the genders, okay? And let's just say, for the sake of that substitution, that male was suffering from some type of psychosis, or again, that's challenged, some type of condition that only impacts males. Don't fight the hypothetical. And he did what she did. If you actually think there would be men surrounding the courthouse supporting that man and blaming that man's killing his 3 kids on his wife and Pfizer, you need to get your head checked out. So when women are doing this, it's absolutely insane to me. And if you're one of these women out there that's going, men hold women to too high of standards, they don't understand how hard child rearing is and how demanding childcare is on the woman's body, why is Lindsay Clancy your poster child? And if your argument is that men are holding Lindsay Clancy to too high of a standard, how low do you want the standard to be? The only thing we're asking she refrain from doing is waiting for her husband's Nissan to pull out of the driveway and refrain from strangling her children. Is that too much to ask for women? And I'm not being dismissive or understating how difficult it is to be a woman. I've had valued conversations with women this week in my DMs, TikTok. I got a bunch of messages there. I barely even know how to use TikTok, but I'm on that platform as well. And I put up a poll on my Instagram. 94% of the women that are followers of mine, and I don't know what percentage of all my followers across, I think the 260,000 of them now are female, were like, yeah, she needs to be fried. But even if you just use that as an extrapolation, what is 5% of the women out there who are actually suggesting this woman should be acquitted? And I'm an attorney, so take that as you will, but understand very simply some of the facts. She is making an insanity defense. To make an insanity defense, you are admitting, that is the condition for making that defense. You are admitting you and you alone, and Clancy in this case, killed her kids, but that she was insane while she did it. And for all the people that are out there trying to blame her husband on it, if her attorneys and she believe there was a snowball's chance in hell that her husband did it, why are people testifying to Lindsay's state of mind? Why would that be relevant if her husband did it? Why would you have a battle of the experts talking about whether or not she had just baby blues, depression, or psychosis? Why would any of that be relevant if her husband did it? And here's some legal analysis for you, okay? Because it gets me so frustrated to see these TikTok personalities who don't even have a JD, not understanding what the law is. If you are an attorney and you submit an insanity plea and you have some misgivings about whether or not your client even did it, that's malpractice. Because you'd be admitting she did it, okay? And there's any of a million ways to raise reasonable doubt. There's a lot of cases, murder cases, where the insanity plea is not given, where they're doing exactly what people suggest they would be doing if there was another person they suspected of this killing. And it's just utterly insane to me. And one of the things that kills me the most about this Lindsay Clancy case, and there's so many things that kill me about it. In fact, it's hard for me to even think about it, is which way do you want it, Western woman? The same group of women that are outside of the courthouse right now, and there's no one that could tell me anything that will convince me otherwise. If you reverse the clock or the hands of time, and her husband took control of her medications, separated her from the children, had her, God forbid, involuntarily committed, those same women outside of the courthouse would be calling foul first. They'd be saying, that's Handmaid's Tale. That guy's a woman controller and oppressor. How dare you separate this woman who's going through things you could never imagine as a man from her children? Every one of those women would be downplaying her condition and calling it baby blues and saying, who is a man or even a doctor to step in between a mother and her children? So which way is it? Either men and health professionals can never be in charge and take control over a woman because she has total and complete agency, or some of the time, the man does need to come in. And I'm not even making that gender-based, because I would submit to you that sometimes a woman should take control of a man's medications and have him involuntarily committed in certain circumstances. And I'd be happy to take a look at one. And if it was the same fact pattern here, I'd be like, wife should have came home and thrown him in the loony bin. And a lot of people I've had discussions about this Lindsay Clancy case, even those who are suggesting she should just go through some medical facility for the rest of her life instead of jail. I think there's a big underlying division, one that's not visible enough, between people's respective theories of justice, okay? Most people, I shouldn't say most rational people view justice in our justice system not as an instrument for the criminal's rehabilitation. In fact, to most rational people, suggesting our justice system is there to help the criminal out is deeply offensive, and I'm one of those people. Our justice system should be there for justice. And what is that? That's eye for an eye. That is punishment. If you hurt others, you should be hurt. I'm not suggesting cruel and unusual punishment. I'm not suggesting the state comes out there and beats you up if you've assaulted someone else. No, that would be impossible to manage. But the way I view the justice system, properly, sanely, rationally, intelligently, is that it should punish people for committing a crime. Otherwise, where's the justice? If you commit a crime and all you need to do is go to some rehab facility where they teach you and re-educate you about why you shouldn't have shot the bodega clerk in the face, where's the deterrent effect in such a justice system? No, I want prisons with little air conditioning and worms in their burgers to deter people from going to prison. Yes, there are wrongfully accused, and that is Very difficult to have and difficult to see. But that's also a reality that we've also seen. Sure, we can take measures and put them in place to reduce the amount of wrongfully accused. But as a principle and in theory and in the abstract, if you hurt innocent people and you're thrown in jail, you should suffer the consequences. And so I think in the Lindsay Clancy case, there's such a misconception, or at least this division of people that are like, oh, she just, needs to be sitting in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Jack Nicholson, chewing Zoloft and Xanax and Vicodin, eating applesauce with a Navajo guy who's gonna rip a sink through a wall at the end of the movie, watching cartoons, playing with crayons. No. I want this woman in a theory of justice to suffer. Here's why. She strangled her 3 kids. Could you imagine how psychotic and depraved and downright evil that is? I can't. I look at her and I've had to stop my brain from thinking about it because I'm like, what? What were those other 2 kids thinking about when they're watching their mom strangle their siblings? It is an unparalleled type of evil. And it's interesting to see the degradation and the de-evolution of a society. And I think this is a very perfect and prime illustration of that degradation because during the 90s, for anyone that was around at the time or just has Google, there was a woman named Susan Smith who drowned her 3 kids in the bathtub, okay? There weren't women outside the courthouse being like, look, we need to show some solidarity because she's our same gender. Why don't men have that same solidarity when someone from their gender is a psycho and kills people? And when women are saying, well, we can all relate, we've had kids, there's such thing as postpartum depression for men, albeit at much lower rates. If a man who was suffering from it and had that diagnosis killed his 3 kids, I wouldn't be able to relate to him at all. I can't relate to people that kill other people, much less children, much less their own. And change the inputs on this one. It's so easy to discern, right? What if she'd raped 15 kids? Would you still be giving her that carte blanche and saying, well, it was postpartum, we can all relate, and we need to stand in solidarity because that's underdiagnosed? What? What if she took an AR-15 and started blasting everyone outside of a Vegas hotel like Stephen Paddock did? Would we be standing in solidarity and being like, well, postpartum is a very difficult and underdiagnosed symptom? What if she did Sandy Hook? Okay? What if she did Columbine? And again, don't fight the hypothetical. If your argument is we support her because postpartum is undertreated, then you are implying that regardless of the crime, you would still show that same support. Do you understand how crazy that is? And I mean crazy in a DSM term, okay? Crazy. And men out there, if you're watching this, I submit to you that one of the first questions you could ever ask a woman when you are exploring candidacy for someone who might look after your children, much less your wife, is whether or not they can relate to someone like Lindsay Clancy. I am so serious. Because in my humble opinion, if you could relate to a triple homicide strangler of her kids, you're ineligible for motherhood. I will triple down on that 8 days a week. Okay? That person is sick. And no man would sit there and be like, well, I related to that guy. That whole feeling about that urge to want to kill the kids in the basement, we've all been there, guys. What? The people sticking up for this woman are not doing their genders the favor they are. Are you kidding me? Are you actually kidding me that you can relate to this woman who hurts innocent kids like that? It is just bizarre at this point. It's not even sick. So that's Lindsay Clancy. And if you do some other Googling too, and I think it's, the broader thesis and exemplar is the downfall of heroines in our society, of people and role models that women can look up to, right? You're surrounded by this call her daddy brain rot, where women are glorifying having sugar daddies and being transactional with their bodies in exchange for a yacht picture. And I'm not saying all women at all. I've been very fortunate to be surrounded by some of the most strong, brave, intelligent, and independent women. But I do look at this society in the same way that women will point to the Andrew Tates of the world and say there's toxic masculinity. Okay, there's 2 sides of that coin. Let's yin that yang. What about toxic femininity that treats women to objectify themselves and treats women to be this material item and dissuades women from being intellectuals, okay? We're not going to address that. That's somehow sexist, but you can cast aspersions on men 8 days a week. Let's keep it a buck like we're running a fever. Let's be honest. Let's be authentic. Let's be genuine for once and talk about the evil, cancerous forces and characterizations and influence there are on young women in this day and age, okay? Because in 1981, what was this woman's name? Marianne Bachmeier in Germany. Some man hurt her daughter. And this is what she did. She walked into the courtroom and she didn't say, oh, well, down goes another one. She took matters in her own hand. And this is something I posted on Instagram. Women used to have real heroes. Nothing could be more clear. Yeah, like that should be the women's rights hero right there of I'm going to support mothers who would kill people that hurt their children. And I'm not suggesting anyone should kill anyone. Be very, very clear and nuanced here if you're coming to Sweeney's Take. I'm suggesting that women need real heroes. And a mother who would sacrifice herself, her liberty, her life for her bears is who women should look up to, not someone who'd strangle her own progeny. Women, wake up. Wake up. And so, look, that was the Lindsay Clancy. That was the highlight. My hot take, someone asked me this morning of what do I think the verdict will be. I think it's going to be a mistrial. And I hate to say that, but I'll tell you why. Because there are 9 women on this jury. And I think with how much brainwash there is right now all over social medias, from these viral TikTok videos, people biting on the gullibility of her body temperature, her husband, or why this medicine was in this dashboard or this glove compartment, I suspect that one out of these 9 women, and let's see, I hope I'm wrong, will hold out due to brainwash. Due to their being surrounded by friends and family as soon as they leave the courthouse, despite the judge's instruction to not consume any other information outside of that trial, one of their friends will be like, you know the husband did it, right? Some idiot friend of theirs who's been consuming TikTok all day and wasn't actually in the courtroom to hear all the evidence, I suspect there'll be a holdout. And it'll be a hung jury and a mistrial. But again, I hope I'm wrong. And that's what I'll say about Lindsay Clancy. And I'll sort of end that on a proviso of, have those conversations amongst women, because the strongest and most powerful messages perhaps that I've ever received since I've been active politically on social medias have been this week from women, sharing very intimate stories of their own postpartum and stories that I can empathize in, and that I had conversations with those women because it is a woman's issue and it's not a man's. But those same women are like, this woman deserves endless responsibility for the things that she did. So I hope we can learn from this. I don't know if we will. Sometimes I'm nihilistic, especially when it comes down to the depravity of murders in the United States. And I think this is a societal illness. You're not seeing this in other countries. This stuff's American, it's homeborn, and it's because this culture we have of sort of this faux feminism. But look, I'll leave that down. I'll put that aside. Let's carry on with this episode. Another highlight of the week was one of the worst, most unqualified candidates and charlatans and demagogues in American history, Abdul El-Sayed. Guy's got a very bizarre Napoleon complex. I never like getting personal insults. In fact, if you comb through all of my sort of content and political opinions, no one's a bigger opponent probably ideologically of Zohran Mamdani than I, but I don't like going personal. I just think it's cheap. I think it's low. I think it's kind of lazy intellectually. Abdul El-Sayed, whenever he gets an opportunity, he's calling Mike Rogers a beta. You know who does that? Like puts physiognomy into all these political debates is people who are insecure and people who are self-conscious. And when you see Abdul El-Sayed stepping up to the podium and he looks like he can barely see over it without sitting on a bunch of phone books, you can understand why. Bro, don't be mad at other people because you came out shorter and more vertically challenged, all right? I've got friends who are in at 5'5", 5'6". You know what they don't do? They don't put physical structure into all these political debates, because if they did, it'd be pretty obvious what they're really mad about. Abdul El-Sayed, I'd submit that you're a beta, but we don't need to go there. Let's keep it above board and let's talk about the issues. And he was invited on to Jesse Waters earlier this week, and he had every opportunity to talk about the issues. That was one of the most painful expositions I'd ever seen. And I'm going to show you a clip of it right here. And I watched it when I was walking around, and sometimes I'll do that if I'm taking a break. I'll be walking around the city and I'll just be listening to some type of political content. I had to stop like 5 times. I was like, bro, cut this off. Whoever's on Abdul Saeed's team, they're getting fired. Someone getting on their Steve Jobs, they're getting fired, okay? And I differ. When I go on these shows, I'll be on Fox News tonight at 11. I speak well into hyperbase. My stuff's not even tweaked and I leak into cyberspace. I don't have to plan a single thing. Abdul El-Sayed probably sat there for a month. You know his team prepped him for being on Fox Primetime, and he still couldn't tell you what the federal budget is. You're running for Senate? I wouldn't put you in charge of a hot dog stand, dog. I wouldn't put you in charge of a lemonade stand that you see in suburbia with blonde girls in pigtails selling them for 50 cents a pot. You don't know what the federal budget is? And you want to be a senator in Congress? Woof. Brother, back to the notepad. Back to the drawing room, back to the chalkboard. You deserve a different vocation because frankly, it's embarrassing for you. And you're doing TikTok videos lip syncing to Taylor Swift. Then you want to call the people beta? There's a lot there. Let's get Sigmund Freud in here, friend of the show. He's going to come on next time and we're going to get him some smelling salts out of the grave for him to do a full-on psychoanalysis of someone who consistently dances around to Taylor Swift and Whitney Houston and calls someone else a beta. What's going on there? Can we read the tea leaves? Here's Abdul El-Sayed on Jesse Waters. And again, whenever I share something, I'm going to let it play in full. But at the same time, I'm going to pause this. What I want you guys to do when you watch Sweeney's Take, if you take anything away from this, what I do when I watch politics or people speaking about their political opinions, I'm like lasered in. Because I feel like Denzel in Training Day, where he's showing Ethan Hawke in the newspaper, he goes, 90% of what you see here is bullshit. Denzel was right, Alonzo was right, and I'm right. And whenever I watch people spewing nonsense politically, you gotta stop it. You gotta stop it. Wait, what'd you just say? Overanalyze everything. Because that's how the gaslight happens if you don't. If you're lazy and you're just letting this thing pass by you complacently, that's why these den of thieves in Washington and city halls all over the country get away with murder, because you got other things to do and you're not paying attention. I am. So thank you for coming to Sweeney's Take whenever you do, because at least someone's out there paying very close attention. Here's Abdul El-Sayed. Let's listen to him, and I'll pause it midway through to analyze it for you. Analyze it?
Long before we ever had ICE, we had INS. We were able to enforce our immigration policies without shooting people in the face and the back of the head.
Stop that right there. Long before, I'm going to let it finish. We were able to enforce our immigration policies without shooting people in the face and the back of the head. He's talking about Renee Nicole Good and Alex Pretty. Listen to me right now. Those people are dead because of their actions. And the only one who deserves more complicity and blame and a share of the responsibility for their deaths is mainstream media. And I'll tell you why. Because Obama was out there deporting a lot more folks than Trump. Renee Nicole Good was taking care of her 3 kids then, happy as a clam, happy as a pig in shit. Alex Pretty, don't know what he was doing, maybe getting his firearm license and slipping through the segment where they said don't use it recklessly. Okay? So for him to blame ICE for these people's absolute ludicrous recklessness is absurd. And yes, Alex Pretty was reckless. And for the people that say, oh, well, I thought, Sweeney, you're a Second Amendment guy. You're a licensed firearm holder. You don't support Alex Pretty. I also don't support someone walking into a gas station and blowing the clerk's face off just because he has a gun. I support the right to bear arms. I don't support the right to behave recklessly while you are bearing them. Do you guys not understand nuance? Moving on, let's listen to the rest of what he had to say.
And we just celebrated our 250th anniversary. That was an anniversary of throwing away tyranny. Now, to bring that tyranny back under the guise of the U.S. government itself,
Stop that right there. Stop that right there. Repeat after me. It might help to do this, okay? Sit down, pay attention. Donald Trump is not a tyrant. His administration is not tyranny. His presidency was predicated and based on a completely legitimate election. That's not a tyrant, okay? And if you look at a map of voting patterns, red versus blue, almost the entire United States is red, okay? That was a valid election, okay? He's not a tyrant. He is acting with his deportations on the will of the people because the number one thing he ran on was deportations and he won that election. Here's a hot take for all the people that accuse Donald Trump of being unconstitutional. His deportations were the number one thing he ran on and he was validly elected. Obstructing them criminally and illegally is the definition of unconstitutional behavior, okay? Those deportations are lawful and unconstitutional. lawful and constitutional. Obstructing them illegally is unconstitutional from the crowd who's morally righteous, okay?
Seems to me to be inconsistent with the freedom you and I both love.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a dodge, Abdul.
They
They did the same thing as ICE back then, INS. Do you know how many illegal aliens are in the
They
country
shoot
now?
people in the face and the back of the head.
Do you know?
That's because the media didn't foment them to obstruct lawful arrests. That's why people weren't getting shot back then. Is that hard to understand?
How many illegal aliens
So
are
my
in the
question is
country
this.
now?
We had, no, I mean, to your point, Jeff,
Wait, this is so boneheaded. It is phenomenal to watch. This is why I support free speech. Because if we censored people like this, we couldn't see how stupid they are. Sunlight is the best
see,
disinfectant.
Jesse, let me just answer the question. To your
Answer
point,
it. How many do we
far
have?
fewer when we had INS. To your answer, we had
exactly.
far fewer when we had
Exactly.
INS.
What? I'll let it play.
INS worked a lot better.
Abdul, listen, we had twice as many
We got
illegals
ICE
now
we
when
have
we
way
had
more.
INS.
So to your argument,
You have.
Do you hear what he just said? He's like, right now we have twice the amount of illegals than we did under INS. So let me break that down, El Said. Your plan, if you are already acknowledging that we have twice as many illegal immigrants here, is to shrink the agency responsible for deporting them? And why do we have twice as many here right now as we did under INS's existence? Here's a brain buster, because under Joe Biden, between 10 and 20 million people came into our southern border. And right now the Trump administration is on its 15th consecutive month with 0 being released into the United States. Yet you want to blame anyone but Biden? Why would you blame Trump for what you perceive to be an imperfect cleanup job and not the person who made the mess in the first place? This is just common logic.
To have the
to your
manpower
argument,
to
Jesse,
do
look,
it.
if you want to do that correlation, we have ICE now, and we have far more undocumented people. So ICE is
We have ICE now because you're seeing ICE out now because we have twice as many people. This guy is dumber than maybe AOC. That's a toss-up.
clearly not working. It's just shooting like American citizens in the face and the back of the head.
ICE isn't working. 15 consecutive months, 0 releases in the United States, but it's not working because 2 morons got themselves killed. What a rocket scientist. And it makes you wonder about the standards in med school, because this guy's a doctor. Was no one checking his work?
Well,
If you're okay with
illegals are
that,
shooting
then I guess
people
we
in the
just
face,
have to agree
too.
to disagree.
Abdul.
Brutal. And the whole idea of migration and strict borders, one of the central components that's always missing to me is the people on the left, how susceptible and subject to manipulation they become because they don't realize, because they've got political amnesia or they just weren't paying attention at that point in time, that open borders is a pro-corporate policy. Why? Because if we've got open borders, just like they have in Europe, that allows the free flow of people coming into our country. And if illegals are coming into our country, be the fact that they were born in lesser conditions and that we should and properly have empathy for them. We do. If they're coming into this country, then corporations can pay them less than they would pay Americans. What does that do to the American employment rate? It hurts America's employment. And if your response is so dumb that you would suggest that this is not a corporate issue because Americans won't do certain undesirable jobs, is there a single person out there who wouldn't wash dishes for $100,000 an hour? You get it? If there were no cheaper labor sources, these companies would have to increase the wages according to your own argument, because they'd have to pay Americans because there would be no non-Americans to fulfill these jobs, and Americans will only work for a certain amount. Raises everyone's wages. And here's someone that is very unlikely of a candidate for me to agree with. Bernie Sanders saying exactly this. This is a first time on Sweeney's Take. You're going to get me agreeing with Bernie Sanders to the T. Listen.
Open borders. No, that's a Koch brothers proposal.
Woo! Put some smoke on it, dog. Open borders, Koch brothers conspiracy, corporate agenda. Why?
Of course. I mean, that's a right-wing proposal which says essentially there is no United States.
But it would make a lot of global poor richer, wouldn't it?
And it'd make everybody in America poor. Then you're doing away with
Bars.
the concept of the nation state. And I don't think there's any country in the world which believes in that.
Spitting facts, Bernie Sanders, friend of the show, talking about how if you open borders, it drives wages down for the exact reasons I just stated. And if you want to talk about this through a racial prism, sit down and put your hands in your cup holders for this one, ladies and gentlemen. The number one group whose jobs are displaced, okay, by illegal immigration on statistics alone are persons of color. Open borders, folks, are hurting persons of color more than any other group. That's not saying there's only jobs that persons of color can hold. Persons of color can hold any job that they want. But I'm talking about statistics and facts. And facts, we hate to say it, don't care about your feelings. And I thought something that Mike Rogers, I don't know much about Mike Rogers, by the way. I just haven't paid too much attention for the simple fact that Abdul El Said is so bad that I would take a piece of lint out of pants pocket and put that up on the voting card, and I would vote for that lint over El Said. That's why I haven't paid much attention to Mike Rogers, because his opponent can be the most vanilla, Ritz cracker, born person in the world. He still would warrant a vote based on just how bad El Said is, okay? And take a look at El Said's mother and sister. Marron. We don't have enough time in the show, but God, still waters run deep. Now do revolutionary waters. Let's listen to Rogers, though. He said something the other day at a pep rally or speech that he did that I thought was incredibly poignant. Simple, as many poignant items are, but important nonetheless.
El Said wants to represent Palestine. I want to represent Michigan.
Ain't that the truth, okay? For those who didn't hear it, it was kind of grainy. He said, El Said wants to represent Palestine. I want to represent Michigan. This strikes a chord, especially for folks living in New York City who are inundated with a mayor who is delusionally obsessed with a conflict going on 7,000 miles and an ocean away in the Middle East. Here's a hot take. Anyone who is running for state office in the United States of America should care far more about American problems than they do foreign countries' problems, okay? Mike Rogers is spot on. He hit the nail on the head with a sledgehammer, okay? Throughout Abdul El Said's entire campaign, he's making issue with Israel. He's talking about Palestine. Meanwhile, Michigan roads are crumbling. And I might know a little thing about that because I played for Michigan State. And I've seen the conditions of Michigan for years going back to that state. And I've seen the problems that state experienced having lived there for, 15 years of my life, maybe more so, because I also grew up in Michigan. Fun fact about Sweeenie, you get a lot of those on these shows. They were decimated by the exit of the auto industry. Here's a breakdown. The supermajority of Michiganders care more about Michigan's problems than they do about any other region on the globe's problems. So whenever El Said does this, he lets his mask slip that shows where his priorities are. Brother, you're always talking about Palestine. Why don't you talk about Lansing? Why don't you talk about Detroit? Why don't you talk about things Michiganders want instead of injecting this foreign policy into your narrative? I'm sick of it. It's really annoying. And I think Rogers' statement saying that was very powerful. I stopped when I was watching. I said, wow, that's a bar right there. Now, setting El Said aside, which I love to do because he's an irrelevancy to me, but let's see what happens in November. We are witnessing here in New York one of the most insane government screw-ups that we've ever seen, and it's happening in real time. So let me just present this one to you. Mamdani has a plan to spend, I think, $70 million, fact check me on that, on grocery stores that are going to be run by the government. But why is that a problem for the grocery stores' competitors, the government stores? The government stores are recession-proof. Why? Because every single month they're funded by our tax dollars. No matter how empty their aisles are, every month they get a check in the form of our tax dollars. And because that check is coming in, rain, sleet, hail, snow, they can drive down the costs of the items they sell there. Mamdani himself said they will sell products for 30% less than their competitors. So what happens right there? It puts all of its competitors who don't have tax dollars coming in every month out of business. And one of these DSA members, Gustavo, DSA co-chair, Einstein of the Week, said, well, if only one government grocery store can put you out of business, maybe you shouldn't have been in that business in the first place. Brother, please stop talking before you understand basic economics. No business can compete with the government because they're recession-proof. They get a check every month in the form of our tax dollars. How does Mamdani solve it? Let's listen to his spokeswoman. This one made my jaw hit the floor. Insane.
Like I said, making sure that we are complementary to the other businesses that are here in the neighborhood.
So other locations, other grocery stores can get grants from the city under this?
Something on the table. We're exploring a lot of different options and opportunities.
That is one of the most insane things I've heard in American politics. And I don't mean that hyperbolically. I am so serious. Again, think about this big picture. He is implementing a program of government stores with our tax dollars. But because his stores will put out private businesses and will put them out of business, his solution is to take more of our tax dollars to pay those stores to keep them in business. He's giving tax dollars to solve a problem his project with our tax dollars started in the first place. And I saw this and I happen to be reading, no one's reading anymore these days, a quote by, I'm gonna mess up his name whenever I talk about Ludwig, von Mises. Okay, brilliant economist that you guys should really get into. But I was reading this the other day after I watched that clip from Mamdani's spokesperson, okay? And he said, government interventions, and I quote, government interventions create unintended consequences that lead to calls for further intervention and so on into a destructive spiral of more and more government control. How prescient. What a soothsayer. What a fortune teller. Government intervention creates problems that need to be solved through the government interveners, through government intervention. It's absurd. We're just being robbed and fleeced. And for the folks that are sitting there talking about, don't boogeyman communism, he's taking control over an entire industry. He's privatizing an industry. That's exactly what that is. It's just done through the Trojan horse of democratic socialism, and you guys are so gullible that you will swallow it whole. It's happening right in front of you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? Now, some other points beyond New York, beyond Michigan of the Trump administration. Trump just announced that he would be revoking over 200,000 visas from people who came here under the guise of visiting for business or tourism reasons, then miraculously applied for asylum, not when they entered, but when they were here. I wonder who would even approve of those asylum applications. And you have to wonder, how rock solid were your tourism and business needs if you forgot to mention that the real reason you came here was asylum? This is something the Trump administration is doing right. He could be imperfect. He is, like all human beings. This is something he's doing right. Another win that he racked up. And again, for those who are watching for the first time, I never voted for Trump in either election. I'm an independent. I wrote in a candidate. I know some people are mad at that. I get it. But I just say that for the qualification of a lot of people try to put me in this like MAGA or Maha box. I think Trump does a lot of things right. Everything? No. No politician does everything right, but he does a lot of things right. And he got another win earlier in this week. With regards to mail-in voting, and we got a graphic here. With regards to mail-in voting, he got a ruling from the Supreme Court whereby his mail-in voting regulations were being contested in lower courts. And the Supreme Court came out and said, no, those rulings or those measures aimed at preventing or limiting the amount of mail-in voting can go forward. That makes perfect sense. And I've mentioned Fact Machine to you guys before. Sorry, this graphic's huge. I just tried pulling this. I'm a one-man rodeo here, folks. Thank you for bearing with me. Fact Machine is a local company. It's like a predictions market, so you can make a lot of money. You bet on whether 50% or more of people will agree with you. Like, will Syed win in November? And you could bet on that and win a bunch of money through doing so. Neither here nor there. Great guys. They're friends of me. 71%, they ran this poll earlier this week, 71% of people do not trust mail-in voting. Because no one's there checking when the mail gets sent out. We don't know who else is in the room. There's a middleman in terms of the mail carrier. They all come in late, and then there's this overhead and lack of seamless processes when counting those. Why would you be against, as just a fundamental starting point, processes that are designed to make sure only valid and legitimate votes get cast. How could you ever justify being against that unless you are for illegitimate votes being cast? It could not be more simple. So I thought that was an interesting graphic, and I think I'm happy the Trump campaign won that. I'd like to see voting requirements be much more strict. In fact, to me, it is mind-blowing that there aren't stricter voting requirements. It really is, because if you make the argument, and I've heard it made before, and it's a very convincing one, that adolescents, if you're below 18 years old, you can't vote. Why? Because you're deemed not intelligent enough. I'm not saying anyone below 18 hypothetically cannot be intelligent enough to vote, but that's what we deem as appropriate as a cutoff. You got to pick some limit there. Do you know how many 17-year-olds are probably smarter than a lot of adults here in New York City? There's got to be some type of test, and I know it's hard to implement, but in a theoretical world, some type of IQ test where you say, hey, by the way, can you read a page of a book? No? Maybe you shouldn't be in charge of deciding the future of this country and who gets to control state machinery. Hot take? Or can we just live in that world? We can create whatever city on the hill we want. The power's in our hands. Okay? So there's that poll. And, look, it was a busy week. I think Clancy's dominated the circumstance. But there's two other items that I thought were worth discussing. And this will be Sweeney's first ever Idiot of the Week. And this week we've got a toss-up. First, we've got Michelle Wu, strong contender out of Boston, Mayor of Boston. Here's what she had to say about their Somali community. Let's hear.
You cannot talk about any achievement that the city of Boston has had in safety, jobs, and economic development, in education, without talking about the Somali community.
What? What? The Somali community is under 2% of Boston's community. You know why that hypothetically could bother me if I'd ever let someone who's dumber than a bag of hammers bother me? Is because I'm Irish Catholic, more Irish than Catholic. I've been trying with my Catholicism, but that's neither here nor there. And we built Boston, okay? Boston's economy, the roads, the infrastructure, their police, their fire, it's predominantly Irish Americans. If you're an Irish person, you're sitting there at a pub, I mean to stereotype with that, having a Guinness, and you look up and you're like, oh, yeah, for sure. It's the Somalis that made Boston. You're like, what are you talking about? That's the level of psyop, and that is a high contender for Idiot of the Week, but here's a woman that might surpass her. And I don't mean to bully on the women, right? There's fierce, strong tiger women out there, but right now, you're taking a lot of L's. And I want to highlight a heroine. Dolly Parton, gone too soon, but I'll highlight some heroines next episode. Here is another woman for toss-up of Idiot of the Week. This is an assemblywoman. This isn't some random person waxing poetic off a blunt or two at a bowling alley. This woman controls state power via the legislature in New York. Here's what she had to say about people who rob convenience stores.
Most of what we saw were crimes of poverty. People who are stealing things like toothpaste. People who are stealing things like, soap. And that means if you're stealing those things, you need them.
That means if you're stealing those things, you need them. That was 2 weeks ago. Let's look at what happened 2 days ago.
We raided CVS! We raided CVS! Oh! Yo, we raided CVS! Oh, yeah! Oh, yeah! Oh, yeah, we got water!
Yikes.
Nah, they raided the whole place. So what am I supposed to... Nah, yo, wait. I gotta guess.
We just gotta let this one play. Watch it.
Right there. I got my M&M's, nigga. Oh, yes, another CVS. We got another CVS.
And we've seen enough. Let me guess. All of those people were going after the toothpaste and soap. How dumb can you be? When we talk about liberal logic, and for the longest time, I considered myself a progressive, and I still do in the actual meaning of the term. And liberal, its root is liberty. It's become so warped. Everyone should be a liberal in terms of wanting to promote liberty, but the modern day left is the side of government force, okay? Think about just how dumb that statement is, where she would mischaracterize petty theft as harmless. They're just seeking soap. No, it's mobs of teens coming into these stores and robbing them blind. That's why whenever you walk outside in Manhattan, I don't know if Emily Gallagher does that, but I'd be happy to link up and show you. We could take a walking tour, okay? Everything's behind plexiglass and bulletproof glass, okay? Why? Low trust society. And for her to sit there and just gaslight and misconstrue this theft as people are going to jail for stealing a bar of soap, you're living in a fantasy realm. And why do we keep on giving these people attention, much less electing them into office? We can see firsthand that liberal policies, New York and LA being the two poster children for this, are so insanely idiotic and frankly dangerous. Why do we keep on doing this? And I think it's a remnant of cancel culture where people don't want to say things, not because they don't think those things they would be otherwise saying are true, but because they don't want to be mischaracterized as racist or xenophobic or Islamophobic. And so because of that lingering danger, they're hesitant to speak up and say the truth. That is a disgrace watching that. And yes, there should be penalizations for any type of theft, no matter the product, Emily Gallagher. Toss up, hands of justice, Michelle Wu saying that Somalis made Baltimore, or Emily Gallagher saying suggesting we should just let these people go. Gallagher takes the win. Let's send her a laurel. Let's send her a 74 hat. Let's send her a big golden medal in the mail. You won the Idiot of the Week. And now, I like beginning episodes and ending episodes, if not on a positive note, then on a beautiful one, sharing a piece of art and a piece of culture and a piece of beauty. Because it's not all about politics and it's not all about seeing the world through black-pilled lenses or nihilistic viewpoints. We do live in a beautiful world, and I think that we can survive and surpass the idiocy that's all around us. And I'm gonna let the episode trail out into another beautiful YouTube video. But before I do, I promised I would take some comments. I'm taking a look at the chat. Finally caught alive. Rip Dolly, Nick Dio, friend of the show. Friend of the show! Nick Dio, Rip Dolly. Dolly was Molly's godmother. I didn't know that. Nicole Henry, I'm so worried the jury is as delusional as all these online women in courthouse supporters. I hope not too. I hope she rots away in prison for forever. Rest in peace to those kids. These kids should know he'd be dead. She in a prison infirmary, if in a wheelchair. This dude's awesome. Thank you, Troll Economics. I don't know if the live is frozen, if you could still hear me. Who the hell is this Jew? I'm Irish Catholic. This dude definitely purchased bots. I never purchased a bot in my life, but if you want to message me, look at this person's name. 2,000 people here are robots. Okay. Nice artificial push to the top of the live. I don't manipulate any of the things I'm doing. I just come on here. He would qualify for the CFO at Wally's. Wally's owes me a lot of money. Let's see. Trying to go through all the comments. Great show, Sweeenie. Glad I caught the live from Sam Avery. Thank you. Such a mess. Awesome content. Andrew O'Connor. Thank you, Andrew O'Connor. The Strait is open. The Strait is open. I have no idea what's going on in Iran. I think it's a mess. I want us out of there ASAP. Revoking 200K visas is not enough. I agree. It's just a start, though. She looks like she just rolled out of bed. She looks worse than that. But let's not go personal. Live from East Lansing, baby. Napoleon Messena. Bleed green. Go white. Keep it up, Sweeenie. Thank you, Sweeenie. I know you had a show. I already followed you on X from Karen Cat Mom. Thank you. I hope the live isn't lagging. It looks like it's lagging for me, so I hope that you guys can see it clear. And I'm going to end this on the off chance it's not lagging with a beautiful video that I saw on YouTube. This is a public school teacher with a chorus of kids in presumably his choir music class, whatever it might be. You might have even seen this video before, but he's having them sing Listomania. So I will let this echo out into the beautiful Thursday evening here in the Big Apple, but wherever this video finds you, whenever this song and image and content comes to you across in zeros and ones, remember, you are loved. You are a beautiful human being. You are a hardworking, valuable person. And if no one has told you this week that they love you, Sweeenie loves you. Thank you for coming to the show. Even if you didn't agree with everything I said, I hope you'll come again. Here's Listomania. I'll let this echo out and close this one out. Have a great Thursday evening and a fantastic weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to Sweeney's Take. Love that sound of laughter. So beautiful. It's only a minute. I'll let it play out. What? It's so beautiful, man. Such joy. I'm not going to try. Thank you guys for coming to Sweeney's Take. I wish I could trail